One final disclaimer about the archive files, to that of which is filled with lots of animosity, even hatred, to those whom of which have, in a compounded nature, throughout the years, even my very good friend, at least in pretense, Stephen, have given me an inordinately harsh time, to where they have literally exploited various symptoms of mental illness, such as leg over negative symptoms due to paranoid schizophrenia and the like, apathy, or lethargy rather, due to chronic polarized depression, to where those symptoms are so unfortunately, tragically misconstrued as being that of renderings, unfortunately, of personage and character, rather than symptomatic aspects of the disease itself. Therefore, instead of being able to talk openly and honestly, and subsequently then being able to manipulate around my personal hindrances of just two stated symptoms of neurochemical deficits, handicap, from family to friends alike, the treatment of who and what I am has been inordinately, inordinately harsh. Unfortunately, once again, misconstrued throughout nothing but what is a pure ignorant bias of well-personaged character. An individual whom of which must endure the chronic symptoms of a severe neurochemical deficit is very much akin to two examples. Number one, the cliche of the returning Vietnam veteran, or in these days, the Iraqi-Afghanistan war veteran, who finds him or herself home in a very crowded venue, perhaps even Midtown Manhattan, surrounded by hordes of millions of individuals, all compacted within a relatively small radius square block of space, yet whom of which that individual has gone through an experience to that nobody can relate to, or would even want, desire to relate to. That individual feels, in spite of being surrounded by virtually millions, alone. Until welcomed by a fellow sufferer who knows what it's like to battle the most egregious aspect of a chronic neurochemical deficit, which is not the disease itself, but rather the not just stigma, but the pure and tragic utter bigotry of the utmost egregious inordinate nature to that of which society places upon the sufferer of the handicap. Final statement, not just for myself, but for anyone whom of which has had to endure this. A compounded, damaging, demoralizing throughout the years of being dealt as being anything but human in nature. Once again, to make myself adamantly clear, one whom of which bears a chronic neurochemical handicap is indeed one rendered not to battle the handicap itself. At least 95% is battling an extremely based societal pathology. A societally pathological disease. This is undue to any inappropriate or ill-warranted behaviors upon one who bears a neurochemical handicap whatsoever. We as a society treat one whom suffers a neurochemical handicap such as bipolar depression or paranoid schizophrenia as being assumed to be anything from mentally retarded to a presumption of being homicidal. This is not a mere stigma of ignorance. Rather, it is severe bigotry. These constant renderings of prejudice with no resolve, from laymen to even the best and brightest in the world of psychiatry, eventually leads to a demoralizing, to even a dehumanizing effect to one who bears a neurochemical handicap. This is terribly tragic. For these SIDS societally based pathologies are actually more damaging than the disease itself. The archives that follow are not instigated by any form of rationalization nor paranoia. They are simply a means to illustrate a very broad-based tragedy upon a bigotry that simply has no name. There really are no comparisons to draw parallels to that of which I had just spoken about. So I'll simply leave you with one more example. One who bears a chronic neurochemical deficit is more prone to render less sociological pathologies than those whom of which have and never will have any SID diagnosis of any form of mental disease whatsoever. Fact. Empirical fact. If I couldn't explain it so well, it would be nothing short of a phenomenon. One final example again, is that one whom of which suffers a chronic neurological, neurochemically based illness is very much akin to that of the SID exonerated prisoner, whom of which has spent 20, 25, 30 or so years in jail, but through DNA evidence or whatever aspects that may come out in court, is indeed technically exonerated by the law. But still, to where society shall never let that individual be free. I'm Richard J. Panizza.